Hey, welcome back everybody. Happy Monday. Hope we had a wonderful weekend and hopefully we rested up for this week because we've got a pretty busy one ahead of us for a lot of folks. Some of us getting in on very nice weather, although quite summer-like weather, while other folks are dealing with a pretty big-time severe weather threat this week. And some of us will do a little bit of both. So I'll definitely give you all of the latest information we have in today's video. Now, if you haven't already subscribed, definitely consider doing so. Like the video if you like it. All of that goes a very long way in helping the channel and helping these videos reach more people, which we're kind of getting into that time of year now where I think there's a lot less interest maybe in the weather, at least on the YouTube video side of things. Oftentimes, winter and kind of hurricane season are a little more active, and this time of year kind of gets forgotten a little bit. But we cannot forget it because, again, severe weather is just as dangerous, if not more dangerous, than winter storms and hurricanes as well. So again, just kind of a little important note there. With that said, though, let's go ahead and jump on into it because, again, we do have a lot to talk about and a lot ongoing for many folks. Now, taking a look at our current watches, warnings, and advisories out there, you will notice kind of the biggest story right now, at least, is these kind of pink boxes on your map. And these are all red flag warnings, again, in effect for some fire danger this afternoon. Again, ahead of our next storm system, we have this very hot air in front, and then eventually that low-level jet's going to kick in and kind of pull out some of this desert air and make just the air even more dry than it probably already is, and kick up those winds. So obviously, all of those things combined are going to be problematic here in terms of fire danger. So if you don't have to burn anything, please don't. And again, in some of these places, you're really just not even allowed to whenever under these red flag warnings. So very important to note that. All right, satellite imagery this morning, not too active right now. You'll notice, again, we do have this area of cloud cover working off the coast of New England. That is from that complex of storms that worked through yesterday. In fact, I'm going to stop this just so it doesn't kind of glitch out anymore on you. But either way, again, as I was saying, this is from that complex of storms last night that worked through New England. Again, we had that enhanced risk from the Storm Prediction Center, and I think that verified pretty well. We had lots of report of large hail and strong straight line winds. I personally didn't see any tornado reports, but as we mentioned yesterday, that was kind of the lower threat. Those wind gusts were really the big time threat. Again, I think a lot of us really saw that in a part of the country that maybe isn't super used to, kind of severe weather, especially in April. I know April kind of feels like severe weather season, but not for everyone in the country. That was more of kind of a June and summertime setup for areas that kind of far north, up into the northeast. So again, kind of interesting stuff to see there. And obviously now the next big story is what's happening out west. Kind of this big cluster of high-topped clouds, I guess rather low-topped clouds, if you will, that are just kind of higher up in the atmosphere here. Again, likely to bring some severe weather this afternoon, as we do have low pressure not far, off of the Great Plains here, kind of working on through Colorado right now, and eventually will make its way into Nebraska, Kansas, and the Great Plains of Colorado later this afternoon, and that's when that severe weather threat really fires up. Although, still, even though we're on the day of, we've got some question marks to answer here, and again, I'll kind of walk you through that here throughout the video. All right, radar imagery, again, nothing too kind of crazy here. And again, I'm going to just kind of pull this all the way ahead into time to show you where we're at right now. We do have some clustering of some showers and some heavier downpours up through the Dakotas and Minnesota. Nothing severe there, but definitely could impact your morning commute. But everywhere else, quite quiet outside of some mountain snow falling into Utah, Idaho, and Montana, and even up into Yellowstone National Park. Other than those two areas, again, we're quite clear through much of the country, but that is going to change quickly this afternoon, as again, we already have a severe weather risk outlined for multiple parts of the country here. In fact, a slight risk of severe weather out into East Virginia from the Hampton Roads area through Elizabeth City, North Carolina, back up into Richmond, Virginia. Again, could see some strong storms this afternoon, as well as obviously our bigger area we've been talking about for a while now is this big slight risk, as well as that enhanced risk in the center of it through much of Nebraska and north central Kansas. But also, just to note here, these areas are connected by a marginal risk. So anyone in this kind of green area could see some strong storms this afternoon from Kentucky over to southern Indiana, Illinois, St. Louis, Louisville, West Virginia. Blacksburg, Virginia could see some, strong storms this afternoon as well. So again, just noting that. And we are going to see multiple threats today, including wind. Wind is going to be the bigger threat out through the Virginia area and kind of back into the Ohio River Valley, and also a threat definitely for our severe storms in the Great Plains. But the bigger threat into the Great Plains this afternoon is going to be hail. In fact, that's what that enhanced risk is driven off of, the chance for large damaging hail, including significant hail. Again, just meaning kind of extra large. In fact, I'm not quite sure what the criteria is off the top of my head, but I would imagine probably baseball size or higher is what this map is denoting, although I'm going to have to fact check myself on that one. But either way, just know very large damaging hail that is definitely more than enough to break windshields, break windows, and cause big time harm if you're caught outside in it. So very important to note that this afternoon up through Nebraska, Kansas, and even back down into portions of the Red River Valley and into northern Texas could see some significant hail as well. And to mention, even portions of Virginia could see some hail this afternoon as well. Again, through Richmond, Virginia Beach, and the Hampton Roads area back down towards Elizabeth City. Got to watch out for some large hail as well. Tornado threat this afternoon, really only going to be a problem in the Great Plains, not really a problem in the Ohio River Valley or Virginia, where we're just really lacking wind shear this afternoon that is going to be conducive enough for rotating mesocyclones. But nonetheless, we do still have that concern back up here into portions of Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas. And I'll mention this is going to be kind of an interesting setup because we're a lot more confident in storms firing up here into this part of the area from Nebraska and into Kansas there, and we're a lot less confident about storms firing down here through Oklahoma and Texas. However, if storms do fire down here into Oklahoma and Texas, I think they're going to have a higher chance of producing tornadoes compared to maybe these storms up north, which are going to be more of a hail and wind threat. So again, I'll show you that in the modeling here in just a moment. But first off, let's start out into the east this afternoon, where again we could see some strong storms through Virginia and the Ohio River Valley. So again, it's going to be a hot day today, and that combined with just a little bit of a front kind of draping on through portions of this part of the country, it's going to lead to the chance for some storms to form this afternoon, and you'll notice that really begins going later on into this afternoon and evening. So this is about 5 o'clock. You'll notice we're still pretty clear, but as we get into the 6 o'clock and 7 o'clock hour, some storms kind of begin to form here throughout portions of Virginia, southern Delaware, and southern Maryland as well. And again, these have the chance to become strong to severe with strong straight line winds and some large hail. And also I'll mention, if you're a photographer or you're a storm enthusiast out in this part of the country, some of these storms definitely could look quite pretty as well. Could be somewhat isolated in nature and have kind of that big summertime thunderstorm look to it. So definitely could be some pretty storms, although again dangerous. So make sure you're being careful should you be outside looking at them, which let's not kid ourselves, I'm sure many of us weather enthusiasts do. Again, I will mention also into this evening, about the time the sun is setting, even after, could also see some more of these storms try to develop, but much more isolated in nature from West Virginia through Kentucky, southern Indiana, Ohio, southern Illinois, and back towards the St. Louis area. Again, more storms could form. Main threat, though, would be just some strong straight line winds, maybe a little bit of hail as well. So again, kind of watching out for that. But honestly, all these storms clear out pretty quickly by the time we get into the overnight hours, and then just kind of some leftover showers there along that kind of stalled front. All right, that is the Virginia kind of Ohio River Valley threat. Again, not too big today, but we obviously do need to mention it. Now let's talk about the Great Plains, and we're going to time this out region by region. I'm going to start in the southern Great Plains, then work to the northern Great Plains, and then we'll talk about tomorrow's threat, and then we'll kind of continue on with other threats that we have to worry about here in the next week or so. All right, here we go. So this is this afternoon, getting pretty late into this afternoon and evening, and this is our latest high-resolution rapid refresh model. I'm sorry, I just slammed my desk there. But either way, again, kind of notice what happens here, though. Once we get into about 3, 4 o'clock this afternoon, storms begin to develop down here into Texas and Oklahoma, and these storms, again, could be quite strong to severe with large hail, straight-line winds, and a tornado threat. Now, as we continue this ahead into time, these storms kind of, pretty quickly congeal together into more of a line of storms and slowly then kind of just die out. So we really only get about 1 to 3 hours of this kind of storm mode before, again, it just dies out into more of a almost MCV kind of look here with just some stratiform rain. And not much of a severe weather threat. So you look at that model and you're thinking, okay, well, again, this is, not a super big threat, but again, should these storms develop here, and if I just take a sounding on this model, you'll notice, we've got a lot of cape that we're working with, again, which is just kind of this area in here between the lifted parcel and kind of the wet bulb. So again, a lot of thunderstorm fuel, but what we're lacking is enough lift to maybe even get these storms started in the first place. So if I move this ahead a little bit and I show you, or if I move this to a different model and show you our NAM model, I'm going to start at the exact same time and move on in to the following hours and watch what happens. A whole lot of nothing. That's what happens here. So again, the threat down here, originally we had enhanced risk, I think yesterday and the day before from the Storm Prediction Center. Today, we're just down to a slight risk just because there's so much uncertainty as to whether these storms can even develop or not in the first place. So again, that's why that enhanced risk was dropped. But if storms do develop, they could be conducive enough for potentially a tornado or two. And the reason I say that is kind of this map here. So this is a sounding from our NAM model, and the reason we're struggling to get these storms to fire is all right here in this layer of the atmosphere at about 850 millibars or so. This red line is our temperature line, and notice how it goes kind of up and to the left and then quickly jolts out to the right and then back up to the left. This is what we call the cap in meteorology. It's just kind of a lid on the atmosphere. But what I want you to also notice, and you can't see it here, but the surface CAPE value here is almost 400 joules per kilogram, which is well more than enough for rising parcels to kind of develop into thunderstorms and cause severe weather. However, again, this cap is kind of preventing that. Again, whenever we have these parcels that want to rise, they want to rise because they are warmer than the air around them. And again, that causes lift and buoyancy, but whenever they hit air that is cooler aloft, they no longer want to rise, and therefore just kind of get stuck there or kind of get worked back down due to gravity. So we're going to need a lot of CAPE this afternoon, or a lot of sunlight, or just a couple factors here to kind of erode this cap a little bit to get that explosive motion and have these storms form, which again just may not happen at all. So that's why we have that slight risk. But if we do get storms to form here, again, we do have a photograph here that is definitely bending and has some wind shear in it, capable of producing a tornado or two. So definitely need to watch out for that should that cap break and we get storms to develop. Now, where we are more confident in seeing storms developing this afternoon is up in the northern part of this threat area from Nebraska down to Kansas and maybe even northern Oklahoma. But here we go. So our latest high-resolution rapid refresh model that we have here, you'll notice as we go into this afternoon and really this evening, this is about after the sun goes down here, some of these storms begin to develop up into Nebraska, again likely producing large hail, but you'll notice not very isolated in nature. This is just kind of a big blob of storms that develop up there, and then eventually the same thing kind of happens about midnight tonight back down towards Kansas. Could again produce large hail, straight line winds, and even an isolated tornado or two through the overnight tonight. And then that just kind of continues before eventually tomorrow morning we finally get this to organize up a little bit more. And again, by the time the sun is rising, we've got a more pronounced line of storms from Nebraska through Iowa back down through Kansas and Missouri. So definitely needing to note that. Now, showing a different model, again, our NAM model, kind of same general story, although holds off till a little bit later and is a little quicker with this forming into a line of storms here. So again, this is after midnight, but nonetheless, quite a strong line of storms from central Kansas all the way up through Nebraska, even into extreme southern South Dakota here. If I take a sounding just ahead of this to look at kind of the environment this is working into, again, a little bit more conducive for maybe tornadic activity here. With, again, kind of just this big, long photograph here showing up. We also have, some CAPE to work with here, which is, somewhat impressive for overnight hours here with about 1,500 joules per kilogram at the surface and about that throughout much of the further up layers in the atmosphere thanks to that low-level jet kicking in during the overnight hours here. So again, strong storms, some tornadoes definitely possible, but I really think the bigger threat today is going to be strong straight line winds and large hail with any of these storms that do develop. And again, the good news is by the time we're getting into tomorrow morning, really clearing out from any severe weather threat from Texas up through Nebraska. So today was a day that people were really hyping up a while ago. They were saying, well, today's going to be the day, Monday, April the 15th, that's the day. It's all going to break loose. Well, now we're here, and again, the threat is kind of really, I don't want to say died down, it's still definitely there and important, and if anything, tomorrow's threat has definitely maybe increased a little for some folks. But nonetheless, again, just not maybe that super big outbreak that maybe a lot of people have thought. So that is definitely good news, though. We will always accept that. Now, I did want to show you significant tornado parameters here, and again, these are just some of the ingredients required for tornadoes. However, this is not the end-all be-all, and you'll notice here, as we get into this evening, those ingredients for tornadoes are getting really high up here into Texas, Oklahoma, and areas to the south. But as I mentioned, with that cap in place, there weren't any storms even developed here. So if we take a sounding over this, again, this looks great, but you need storms to actually fire here. So we got plenty of cape, we got big-time lapse rates, we've got instability, we've got the hodograph curving, but at the end of the day, we need actually enough lift here to kind of get on through that cap in the atmosphere and get storms to develop. So again, should they develop, tornado conditions will definitely be primed up there through Oklahoma, northern Texas, and even to the north here again, before eventually in the overnight hours, again, this turns into more of a line of storms, and you'll notice that's showing up well here in our STP values. And again, could see a couple overnight tornadoes before getting into tomorrow morning, and the threat dies off a little bit before once again increasing tomorrow afternoon, which is a great segue into tomorrow afternoon, where once again we have an enhanced risk of severe weather, this time up for portions of Iowa, Missouri, and Illinois here. And again, I think tomorrow is going to be a bigger tornado day than overnight tonight. And I'll show you why here in just a moment. But also notice that slight risk does stretch all the way back down into Arkansas. So could see severe weather anywhere from Iowa, really all the way down even into extreme northern Louisiana tomorrow afternoon. But that biggest threat, I think, is right over that bullseye there with that enhanced risk of severe weather. And once again, that does include large damaging hail here over southern Iowa, northern Missouri, and into portions of, let me do directions in my head here, western and northwestern Iowa, not even Iowa, Illinois. I promise I'll look at a map next time beforehand, but either way, again, large hail going to be a concern tomorrow, as well as tornadoes. And here we go. Tornado outlook tomorrow is higher than it is today, including the threat of significant tornadoes. Again, that is highlighted in kind of that shaded black area on your map here, indicating that these storms could produce tornadoes of EF2 strength or higher. And again, I think that is a very real possibility tomorrow. And let's go ahead and dive into why that is what I think. But I guess before we do that, let's talk about the southern threat area here, which again is a little bit lower in nature, and again I will show you why. So waking up tomorrow morning through Arkansas, southern Missouri, points southbound that are under that threat area, honestly probably going to be kind of cloudy. Going to see some dreary conditions, maybe some kind of misty conditions, if you will, some scattered showers working on through. And honestly, I'm just not sure the atmosphere ever quite fully recovers from that throughout the day, even into the afternoon, where again I think about the time the sun is setting tomorrow, we could get a line of storms or broken showers even maybe just to develop here into the southern tier of this threat area. But again, all things considered, these should stay relatively tame. I wouldn't expect too much of a tornado threat here. Definitely maybe some gusty winds with some of these, maybe even a little bit of hail. But in terms of actual big-time severe weather, the bigger threat is going to be to the north. And again, areas to the south here, especially Arkansas southbound, again, more of kind of a shower event than I think any kind of big-time severe weather threat. Now again though, that's a different story to the north, so let's go ahead and time this out a little bit. This is waking up tomorrow morning about the time the sun is coming out, and again here's that leftover line of storms from the night before, now slowly working in through Missouri and Iowa, and will continue to do so throughout the day. Again, being more tame in the morning but strengthening in the afternoon, bringing more of that severe weather threat. By the time we're getting later on into the afternoon, that wind threat really increasing, that hail threat really increasing, and even a couple embedded QLCS tornadoes are going to be possible here with this line of storms. But watch what happens later in the day here. Again, this is about the time that I think things are going to get a little bit more serious, probably about 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Again, still dealing with this feisty line of storms to the north through much of Iowa, and even could become a little feisty up into Minnesota as well. But on the southern tier of this, kind of here into the Iowa, Missouri, Illinois kind of border region here, look at some of these more isolated storms firing up on the backside here. And these are going to really have the chance to produce a couple tornadoes, again, including some that could be strong. So here we go into about 22Z, or getting into the evening hours. Here's some of those supercells now forming on the backside here with the chance to produce, again, tornadoes, and obviously still straight line winds and large hail. And those continue to slowly work on through. And here we go, about the time the sun is setting, very discrete, very pronounced supercells showing up here, crossing into Illinois from Missouri. And tornado threat is going to be very real with these, again, going into tomorrow evening. So have to watch out for that. And we can see that well here on our significant tornado parameter map. You'll notice these ingredients are not too high until kind of later in the afternoon. They really increase here over the Missouri-Illinois border. But again, I think anywhere kind of in this circled area on your map has the chance to see a strong tornado or two tomorrow afternoon, especially though kind of in this region, again, that Illinois, Missouri border, and even into extreme southeastern Iowa. So again, going to be a concern tomorrow before, again, those ingredients kind of die down into the overnight hours. And that gets us to Wednesday. So again, just day after day here, it feels like. But I guess it's not even it feels like, it just really is day after day of threat areas for severe weather. So Wednesday, here we go. Slight risk of severe weather up through the Ohio River Valley from Paducah, Kentucky, up through Louisville, Indianapolis, Columbus, Cincinnati, and even back down towards Nashville, under the gun for some strong storms. And again, that includes the threat of kind of everything here. Now, if we show this to you on a map, again, we're out of mesoscale range at this point, so showing it to you on our global model here, our European model, and here we go, Wednesday afternoon. Sure enough, look at these storms firing up through Indiana, back down through Kentucky. Again, some of these storms could become strong to severe. If we just take a very quick sounding kind of over the middle of this threat area, again, yeah, it could definitely produce a couple tornadoes here. Cape values about 1,500 to 2,000 joules per kilogram through many layers of the atmosphere. We've got some curvature in the hodograph. You'd like to see that to be a little bit more elongated, but nonetheless, conducive for severe weather, including the potential of a tornado or two on Wednesday afternoon, but definitely a lower threat than Tuesday, which could be, a much kind of bigger day here in the severe weather department. And then again, those storms kind of become weaker and slowly move on up through the Midwest and into the Northeast overnight Wednesday into Thursday. Now, that is not the end. Unfortunately, we get into Thursday, and this is Thursday morning here, and you're looking up to the northeast. You're saying, all right, well, these are just some showers moving on through, not too much of a severe weather threat. Well, you're correct, but on the backside, we're going to get another area of low pressure to develop here, kind of along this front, and that, once again, could produce severe weather Thursday afternoon. So here we go. Into Thursday afternoon, low pressure developing and storms firing from Missouri down through Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas. Again, now under the gun, once again, for some severe weather, and the Storm Prediction Center already highlighting that here with a day 4 outlook for severe weather through much of eastern Oklahoma and into northwestern Arkansas, southwestern Missouri, and kind of into just north of the Dallas-Fort Worth metro. So again, more severe weather kind of on the horizon for Thursday. After that, we could even see severe storms later in the week, but I think those will be a little less on the tornadic side and maybe just more on the wind and hail side throughout the southeast. And we'll talk about that later on this week as we get a little bit closer. The final map I did want to show you is temperatures because, again, it's going to be hot today. In fact, we're going to be well above average. Many folks here into the southeast, we're going to be flirting with 90, but definitely at least mid to upper 80s. And that continues for a lot of folks, getting, 10 to 20, even almost 30 degrees above what we should be this time of year in isolated spots out into the Great Plains. So again, just a very warm day today. That continues into our Tuesday afternoon, but you'll notice definitely some pockets of cooler air kind of on the northern side of that storm system, but all things considered, the entire eastern United States well above average here in the temperature department today, tomorrow, into Wednesday once more. But watch what is beginning to happen here. Up into Canada, this big pocket of below average weather, temperature-wise at least, slowly begins to sink into the country. And again, that's going to spark storm development on Thursday afternoon and eventually likely continue that into Friday afternoon as that cold air clashes with that warm air. The southeast could get in on some severe weather. Same story for Saturday afternoon before finally going about a week or so out from now. These cool temperatures once again take back over, and if I just take kind of a random temperature sounding here, for example in Charlotte, again where we could be up into the 80s today, we may only be in the 60s for high temperatures about a week out from now. So again, big time change potentially on the horizon here for a lot of folks, and again that's going to spark some storms. Anytime you get these big cold air masses to sink down south this time of year, clashing with this warm humid Gulf air. Also, sorry, I realize my phone's been going off here. Let me try to turn that down. It's the end of the video now anyway. But anyway, again, as I was saying, storm chances throughout the week, followed by a cool down going into early next week. So if you're a fan of cooler weather this time of year, just hold on out, and again, we'll cool things down, I think, in about a week or so. All right, with that said, again, hope you have a great rest of your Monday it is. Stay safe today, and I'll see you all tomorrow morning.